When this game was first leaked, I was hoping that it wasn't real. I was kinda on the Cope train that it was an edited Nahobino model, and that it wasn't even a Fire Emblem game at all. I mean, it's in a hotel. Fighting alongside heroes from the past feels like a premise written by Kinoku Nasu himself. Like, this couldn't be real, right? But as we came to find out on September 13th, 2022, this was in fact a real game that was in development. And I kind of lost all interest. I wasn't hyped, I didn't hate it. I was merely uninterested in the next mainline installment, which hasn't ever happened before since I've gotten into Fire Emblem. It was a stark turnaround from Three Houses, which gripped me with its marketing and ambitious ideas. Its vast world, yet grounded, fun cast of characters. It even had a lore that reminded me of myself. Pre-release, Three Houses was perfect. Why couldn't Engage be like this and stir up those same emotions and fervor in me? Why didn't it interest me? Why did it feel recycled and shat out rather than something wholly new and original? There were also little things that I was noticing pre-release that worried me, like the increased accessibility of Fire Emblem, which was taking it away from the strategic roots of the series I loved for its challenge. So how do I feel 1 year later about Fire Emblem Engage? Well, it's complicated. Did you think the biggest blabbermouth of them all would keep it to a 16-minute video? Of course not. I'll be covering my feelings on the game over this year. It'll be split into about 5 to 6 topics. So make sure to subscribe if you like this video, as more like it will be produced in the coming weeks. With this series, I hope to give voice to what I assume is an unpopular opinion and experience, so I hope you can relate, or at least come to understand my perspective. Here begins a personal Fire Emblem Engage retrospective series. Yes, where's the love for a series that I've been into since I was a child? To some of you, this will sound strange since there's so many references to days past. How could I not feel a sense of nostalgia seeing my favorite characters be birthed into HD? But others of you will understand exactly what I mean when I say Fire Emblem Engage feels loveless and has an apparent disrespect for its very foundation. Forewarning, I cannot speak for most of the representation since I haven't played most of the games in the series. So this video is coming from a place of someone who holds Fire Emblem 7, Fire Emblem 5, and Fire Emblem Fates as their series favorites. While I am not super dissatisfied with Fates representation, I cannot say the same for FE7 and FE5. Half the reason I feel this way about Engage is because of the treatment of these two games in particular. I do not see the careful intent for especially older titles with this entry, which was supposed to make us feel seen and acknowledged as old-time fans. To masterfully integrate new and old, to celebrate what has come before, Fire Emblem Engage shows this total disregard for the history by its utter fucking that is the absence of anything race related, and its bias towards wanting to instead celebrate Faye's bastardization of Lyn only, that's important, rather than FE7 as a whole. Lyn is not just a Sakaean woman. She's a stubborn, driven person who values her family above all else, even at the sacrifice of her own happiness and comfort. She doesn't take anyone's shit and can have quite the attitude sometimes. Lyn is a character who struggles with both halves of her identity throughout her story mode, as she tries to understand her place in the world. Lyn has a lot of depth to her character to anyone who can fucking read. I guess that might explain Faye and Engage then. They boiled down Lyn's character just being a sexy woman from the plains. She's always super sexualized despite not being in touch with her femininity like in FE7, has seen in her Eliwood support where she asks Eliwood to teach her how to be a lady. And she only talks about the plains. Like, she doesn't even mention the plains this much in FE7. Do you realize that? Like, it's just the weirdest Flanderization ever. Like, the thing she mentions in FE7 non-stop is her family. That's the thing she's always mentioning. She's always mentioning her granddad. She's always mentioning the parents, like the Lorca tribe. Like, she's mentioning that shit. She's not really talking about the plains that much. Like, it's a part of her character, but come on, it's not the only part of her character. Like, in this, like, new era of Lyn, I think she only mentions, like, her family once in her Valentine's ult.
I wonder what I should give my grandfather.
And it's like, Hassan is her whole fucking motivation. It's protecting her grandfather and her family. That's the whole point of her whole thing. How does she not bring up her family once, even in Fire Emblem Engage? Like, the clan boss report actually pissed me off because I was suffering through these boss reports because I have to do my due diligence, so I just can't be saying bullshit, you know? But I was right. I knew they wouldn't mention her family at all. Because why would they? They don't even understand anything about Lyn in the first place. All they understand is that she has thighs, tits, and she likes grass. That's about it. But whatever. And even her John bond support, it shows similarities between her and John. And she just gives some robotic advice instead of relating to him like a person about their shared experiences. Like, why is Lyn just not relating to him? Like, why is she giving him advice that he didn't fucking ask for? Additionally, Lyn has so much fire. She always seems so docile and dry in these later incarnations of her. Where's that attitude? Where's the charm? Everything she says sounds like it was produced by an AI chatbot. And believe me, I know a thing or two about AI chatbots. There's no human feeling to it at all. I mean, most of that is Wendy Lee's awful acting, but the script is dreadful as fuck too. It's terrible, and I hate the way Lyn is represented, down to some fuck-ass grass and wind, when she did not even mention it that much in FE7. Speaking of FE7, isn't Lyn supposed to be representing that damn game, not this bastardized version of herself, so that nerds can tap to her in HD now too? Engage simply took the most recognizable and marketable part of FE7 and haphazardly and without care put it in the anniversary game. So aptly, there is no love towards title at all. For example, the Paralog map they chose is not even from FE7. It is a map from FE6. And it's included with Lyn because it's a Sakai map. Yeah, again, why is Lyn representing Sakai and not the damn game she comes from? Including the Sakai map misses the whole point of their shitty gimmick with Engage, which was to call nostalgia for all the games in the series. There just is no FE7 content in the base version of Fire Emblem Engage. I also thought the Hector map they chose was like awkward and weird, but whatever. Do you know how fun it would have been to be dodging Ursula bolting from the dark, or growing up with Pirate Fergus and Damien again, the rascals? A lot of other maps could work, but these are my personal favorites. I'm curious about your guys' favorites too, because I have no idea about the consensus of FE7 maps at all. But back to the video. Because the map and Lyn herself are not even from Fire Emblem Blazing Sword, these elements are from FE6 and Faye respectively, I did not really feel seen as an FE7 fan. It made me more angry than anything else. But nothing makes me more angry than the Emblem of Genealogy. You heard that right. Not the Emblem of Thracia, the Emblem of Genealogy. It was all there in the name, folks. Leif is meant to represent FE4 Gen 2, and not his own fucking game. And that's the problem. FE5 is one of my favorite SRPGs of all time because of its unique mechanics like capture and Crusader scrolls, which allowed for more unit customization. It was truly ahead of its time in that regard. It was very good story gameplay integration since Leif was a broke prince trying to reclaim his kingdom and liberate his people. So stealing weapons off his enemies is what he needed to do to build up his army. It was fun as fuck to be like, yeah, I want that, and just take it. The level of trolling reaches ahead when you get your hands on Tina too. I'm sorry, my dark-skinned brethren. I love robbing and taking shit that ain't mine. So color me shocked when the way that Leif represented it does not remind me of the revolutionary mechanics from his game. I was literally like, pre-release, I was literally like, if I can rob niggas, Engage as an instant cop. But nah, the pockets of every Elusian goon are safe. That was some bullshit. I've heard online that Leif's game is way too different to have mechanics included, and I just completely disagree with that. It just takes a little imagination and, you know, giving a single fuck about Thracia for it to work. For instance, Leif, if he kills an enemy with his emblem attack, maybe he could steal the weapon, it's used in the map for about 5 uses. It could pair well with, I don't know, an enemy that had Leaven Sword before you actually have access to them. It would allow for some really interesting strategies with backup units, has this use of the Leaven Sword for backup attacks would not eat up a use. I honestly get excited just thinking about all the ways that FE5 gameplay could have been used. Yeah, they decided to give Leif some useless trash-ass ability, which doesn't even do damage half the time because every enemy in this game has a mixed bulk. Also, the covert emblem bonus for Tetra Attack fuck you, that's not what stealing is. Like, no, just like, fuck you. If you're gonna like tell me that, oh, this is representing FE5 because you get to spawn 1,000 gold with like a 10% chance, no, actually just like, fuck you. Fuck you. Like, that was, fuck that. Leif could have also altered growth rates slightly based on class type in order to represent the scrolls in FE5. Similar to how it is in Thracia, just without the craziness of putting all the scrolls on one unit. Both of these changes would have given Leif some more utility usage other than being vantage fodder for your Panette. Leif being seen something more than vantage fodder actually brings me to my next point, something I find rather distasteful about the game's premise. The objectification of my favorite characters is a rather odd decision. We're bringing back all things you love, except they are little more than tools with pretty faces attached. For example, one moment that stands out to me is that the dark emblems do not talk, lowering the eggs down to 0. It's boring, sorry. Another example is the advice that emblems give not mattering. The one time Marth could have actually made a difference, Allier ignores him and then proceeds to get raw dogged by plot contrivance after plot contrivance. The bond supporters leave little for me to latch onto as well, since with Lyn, it's just the most basic parts of her personality on display, rather than the character I've grown to love over the years. It's like the faces are only there to tickle my nostalgia boner. The way the characters touched us does not matter in this world. Why would anyone who cares about all these characters, all these games, treat them like this? So that's why I say Fire Emblem Engage feels loveless. It does not wish to represent the depth of Fire Emblem to a new audience. It only wishes to highlight the most profitable parts of it for financial gain, which is why FE5 is sidelined for FE4, since FE5 is the worst selling entry in the series, and why Fei Lyn is represented instead of FE7. I'm sure other fans have noticed certain things about their favorite games not being well represented by Engage, and can certainly at least understand this sentiment. As much as I was critical of Engage's premise, I think I would have really loved it if it managed to actually remind me of the past and remind me of why I'm a Fire Emblem fan. Like, we just had Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed, has like a perfect contrast to this. Life explores ahead. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I have mixed feelings about that game. It was like a little bit nostalgia baity. Future Redeemed especially feels super nostalgia baity, but man, did the nostalgia hit. Did it hit? Did it remind me of why I love Xenoblade in the first place? It remind me of some of these memories from years ago, like from years ago. When Shulk mentions the big ass level 32 spider in his affinity scene.
That place! What is it, Shulk? The last time I explored these ruins, something crawled up towards us from below. It was the leader of the local Antolls. It caught me and my friends completely by surprise, so I'm still slightly traumatized.
Oh dear, I'm not really feeling that.
I was hit by a rush of emotions I had felt back then when it jump scared the shit out of me. This is the stuff you can't get from a wiki. This is what happens when you love a series for years and you want to stir up the same emotions that fuel you in others. And Engage, it doesn't remind me of shit from years ago. It doesn't remind me shit of why I love this series. It's just the most marketable parts of the series, which I don't care for, personally. I can tell that the Xenoblade series really touched the people who made Future Redeemed, and it changed their lives forever. But Engage, I don't see that same regard and affection, as these people did not even bother to represent the games appropriately or at all. It's quite troubling to really think that you care more about this series than its developers, but my trust as a consumer in this regard has been totally broken. It is what it is. They'll have to prove me wrong with the next upcoming title. But that's not all for our retrospective series. There's so much to cover, and the nostalgia bait is only a small part, even if it was the marketing gimmick. That part was a flop, but do the other aspects of Engage disappoint me? You'll have to find out by hitting subscribe and waiting like a couple weeks or something. I don't know. I'm super slow with content. Anyways, laters.